If cybercrime were a country, it would have the third largest economy on the planet. Don't hire Refend. I don't like conflict. I like to avoid conflict. I don't like to say anything that's off color or dramatic. I am not to be fucked with. And he's like, well, we are refund fraudsters. And I'm like, oh, a good deal. This is the problem with letting a wolf into the henhouse. Even if the product does work, do you want them in your environment? If you tell them, no one's going to hire you. A lot of refund fraudsters are not poor people. They just engage in this bullshit because, hey, it's fun. They're f***ing idiots. Hey, Brad, saw your LinkedIn post about Refund. You're going to see this episode. It's going to hurt your feelings. It's going to hurt your business. Two of you motherfuckers admitted to fraud during the meeting. I am better at this than you are. Hi, I'm Brett Johnson, former United States most wanted cyber criminal. In today's world, criminals come in all shapes and sizes, but they all have one thing in common. They all have criminal thoughts. On today's episode, is a special episode. We're talking about refunding fraud. We're talking about how some fraudsters use their knowledge to open up legitimate businesses, or AKA, we're talking about Refend.ai. Before we get started, though, let's check in with Brian, see what he's got for us.
ByteDance, the Chinese technology company who owns TikTok, has created powerful new software that will allow its users to instantly change their voice into another person's using generative AI technology. The tool, called Stream Voice, is not yet available to the public, but it is already sparking fraud concerns among experts.
TikTok, you say? Well, here's the thing. In case no one knows, I love me some TikTok. I think I'm on first name basis with TikTok and the ByteDance company. As a matter of fact, I don't even call it TikTok. I call it the Talk. Exactly, Brian. Now, here's the thing. There's a reason I like the Talk so much, because their damn algorithm cannot be beat, and I mean cannot be beat. Here I am. I'm on my phone. I'm innocent enough. I'm not a pervert. I'm just scrolling along. And there's something that jiggles. And I don't stay there that long. I stay there just a second. But that just a second is enough that from that point on, every single thing that I click through jiggles. And I'm a man. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not. But if you got things that jiggle in front of you, I'm just saying. Now, that's not what this news story is about. This news story is about the ByteDance deepfake audio AI. Here's the thing. So let's get serious for a second. We're talking about AI this year, and we've talked about AI last year because of ChatGPT, and everyone is worried to death that AI is going to be like, Skynet, and the Terminator is going to come and kill us all. You've got 8,500 plus security companies out there. You've got a lot of mass media out there, and they want to sell products, services, advertising, what have you. They tend to latch on to whatever the trending story is at that point in time. Right now, it's AI. The year before that, it was the metaverse, and we saw all these security companies talking about fraud and crime happening in the metaverse. Never happened. Now, I'm not saying that the same is going to apply when we're coming to AI. I absolutely believe that AI is going to be a benefit to criminals worldwide. Absolutely. That's not really the case right now. We're seeing it in some aspects, but not really being implemented to any real success at all at this point in time. When we're talking about deepfakes, and the reason I prefaced my conversation about deepfakes, talking about AI and its actual use by criminals right now, deepfakes have been around a while, audio, video. The problem with deepfakes has been we have not seen a real-time conversation taking place with deepfakes. So if you get hit with business email compromise, so you think that your CEO has contacted the payroll department and diverted a payment to someplace else, business email compromise. If you see that, historically that's been a recorded video, audio mix, something like that. With the ByteDance product, we've now got a real-time deepfake audio. Now, no, it's not available to the public, but it will be. Or other people will create the exact same type of tool that will be available. Criminals really don't create a lot of technology. They use off-the-shelf products and services and repurpose them for criminal activity. So a product like the ByteDance deepfake audio real-time is a boon for criminals. We're going to see more of this as it becomes more ubiquitous, easy to use, things like that. We're going to see it. It's going to start with business email compromise more than likely, and then it's going to bleed down to every single aspect of cybercrime where it becomes useful. End of the day, and this is what's kind of interesting, where does this deepfake lead us down the rabbit hole? And I really think that we potentially get to the point where we are not able to trust anything that we see or hear online at all. And then what happens? I honestly don't know. Brian?
U.S. authorities have revealed that they've captured convicted killer of 25-year-old professional cyclist Anna Wilson. Back in 2022, Caitlin Armstrong shot and killed Wilson in an extreme act of jealousy, stemming from a relationship she had with her former boyfriend, cyclist Colin Strickland. After Armstrong fled to Costa Rica, U.S. Marshals came up with a clever ruse to place an advertisement on social media seeking a yoga instructor, which in turn lured the fugitive out of hiding.
Caitlin, you bitch! They got you! Look. I don't use that word. I mean, okay, I do use that word. It's a gender-neutral word with me. I actually think that there's more men out there that are bitches than women. Caitlin, though, absolutely a bitch, and I'm glad they got that bitch. Now, here's the thing. Going on the run. I used to teach going on the run when I was in Shadow Crew. And that's interesting because I then went on the run and I got my ass caught. What are you supposed to do when you go on the run? People, places, and things. You have to disassociate from every single thing that you used to do, where you used to frequent, the people you know, everything else. So you have to cut all ties. Not only do you have to cut all ties, but you have to get out of the area that you're in. You have to create a brand new life with new hobbies, new interests, new people around you, everything else like that. That's very easy to say. It's very easy to say. But we as human beings are creatures of habit. You know, me, when I was a criminal, I liked to frequent me some strip clubs. I really did, because as I mentioned earlier in this episode, I like things that jiggle. I no longer do that. See, ding ding. I no longer do that. But back then I did. When I went on the run, I stopped that bullshit because I was like, yeah, if there's one place the Secret Service is going to look for me, it's in every strip club that's in the South. And by God, they did. Matter of fact, I talked to a Secret Service agent, that one of the head investigators that was looking for me when I was on the run. And his name is Bobby. I had lunch with him a few years ago. And he was telling me, he's like, Brett, you know, when you went on the run, man, all the agents in the office, we were all in line to camp out at the strip club, thought it was the best thing in the world. 3 months later, we couldn't stand it. And I was like, Bobby, I know exactly what you are talking about. The point is that you have to disassociate it. You have to become that new person. But it's very difficult to do that. I got caught because I could not cut ties with the people that I loved. And that's what got me caught. They used, back then it was called a triggerfish. Today it's called a stingray to track me down, find me, okay? This lady, see, I didn't call her a bitch. I wanted to. This lady evidently is really hip on yoga. So much so, the U.S. Marshals knew that. They kind of understood the general area that she was in. And one U.S. Marshal was like, we know she's moved out of her area, so the people and the places, we can't go by that. What about the things? Well, you know what? I hear that this bitch she really likes the yoga. Why don't we place an ad for a yoga instructor? You actually think that shit'll work? We can try. Shit, roll the die. And they got her. End of the day, U.S. Marshals are extremely good. They always get their man, whether it be Whitey Bulger, whether it be Brett Johnson, whether it be this Caitlyn idiot. Okay, on today's Criminal Insight of the Week, I was going to talk about going on the run. We just did that on the news segment. So I turned my life around. And when I turned my life around, when I was committing crime, I didn't give a damn about any of my victims. I simply did not care. I justified my crimes by saying, hey, I'm a good guy. Hey, I'm doing it for my sister, my family, my wife, my stripper girlfriend. I didn't care about the victims. I didn't, I don't know what else to say. I did not. Once I turned my life around, got on the good guy side of the fence, I've been very fortunate that I've been able to talk to a lot of victims. I've spent a lot of time in prison, and now as a free person, reflecting on those years of victimizing other people. And I am constantly sorry for that. Constantly. It's something that I think about every single day. The reason I say that is that now that I'm on this good guy side of the fence, I also spend a lot of time talking to former criminals. And in the past, and until I started talking to former criminals, I always had this idea that their recovery, their rehabilitation had to mirror mine. If you don't do it the way that I do it, by God, I don't believe you've done it. That's not really the case. And the reason I say that, I have met more former criminals who have turned their lives around, who are not necessarily sorry for the crimes that they have committed. See, before I used to believe that unless you're sorry for the crimes you're committed, the chances are you're going to go back. You're still a criminal. I don't really think that's the case anymore. And it bothers me. Make no mistake, it bothers me, because I think you should show some contrition and empathy and remorse for victimizing other people. But I think the criminal insight that I'm trying to get to today is that when you're dealing with someone who has victimized other people, when they stop, sometimes you have individuals that are remorseful. Sometimes you don't. So what guarantees that someone will not go back to that life of crime? And this goes back to when you're exiting federal prison, they give you these classes. And what they tell you in one of the classes is they tell you, hey, get your ass a job, get you something you care about, and you probably won't recidivate. I think that's absolutely a large part of it. If you have a job, if you have an income coming in, understanding that most crime is cash-based, that criminal is simply looking to profit. Well, if he has a decent job, the chances of him committing crime to profit much, much lower at that point in time. Add in something that person cares about, whether it be a girl, a boy, not a girl, a boy, a man, a woman, a dog, a cat, what have you. Something that they care about that ties them to the free world, not that world behind the fence. So you add that, but it goes a little bit deeper. I'm going to have a gentleman on in a couple of weeks that talks about this concept called criminal menopause. And what that basically means is, by God, you've gotten so old that you're done committing crime. And I think that all these things rolled in together oftentimes means that a person will not return to a life of crime. So just bear that in mind, that just because someone is not remorseful does not mean that they will return to a life of crime. By God, I wish they were remorseful, but from my experience right now, more often than not, they're not the least bit remorseful. Okay, so on today's episode of Criminal Thoughts, we are talking about refunding fraud. We're talking about what it is, how did it evolve, how it's done, and we're talking about Refend.ai. Why are we talking about Refend.ai? We'll get to that. Long story short, some of the founders of that company were, and maybe still are, fraudsters. Now, hold that thought in mind as we build up to that nice little climax. Da, da, da. Now, refund fraud.
I don't have a sound effect for that. I need one.
Refunding fraud. What is it? 2013, and for those who have been tuning in to me for a few years, I'm the first person on the legitimate side of things that started talking about refunding fraud in this industry. This was back 2016-ish. I was coming to terms with becoming a legal person and started talking about refunding fraud and how it was happening and the damage it was causing and how it had redefined cybercrime. And it absolutely has. So what is it? Back around 2013 on Evolution Marketplace, dark web marketplace, I was committing advanced replacement fraud. So what was going on? Back then, Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, they had the Surface Pro 2, they had whatever the Xbox was at that point in time, and they were shipping these things out broken. I mean, they had a horrible failure rate. And because of that, you had a lot of customers that were really upset. They started raising hell. Microsoft instituted an advanced replacement that if you got a Surface Pro 2 or an Xbox in, and it was DOA, dead on arrival, that the only thing you had to do was go to the Microsoft site, enter in the serial number, a credit card number. They wouldn't charge the credit card. They would just verify it as legitimate. You would enter in a credit card number, and Microsoft would overnight you a Surface Pro 2 or an Xbox. And they'd leave it on your doorstep, and you'd go and pick it up, and you'd sell it on eBay. The thing was when they shipped this thing out, the replacement Xbox or Surface Pro, they were shipped in a brown cardboard box without an AC adapter. So that Christmas on eBay, you could type in Surface Pro 2, searching for it, and you would see hundreds of Surface Pro 2s in these brown cardboard boxes. Every description would say, does not come with charger. So you didn't have a charger, and you'd have to buy a charger from Alibaba, and Alibaba would ship your ass a charger, and you'd plug it into the side, because back then it wasn't USB-C. It was this little proprietary bullshit thing. You'd clip it on the side of the Surface, and every time you'd touch the Surface, because it came from fucking China, it'd shock the shit out of you. But I was doing that type of fraud, and I was making pretty good money, stealing pretty good money. Let's put that caveat in there. While I was doing that on Evolution, we started to see, and Evolution was the dark web criminal marketplace and forums at the time. It was the number one across the board. We started to see in that environment individuals coming in, and they would post that they were profiting $10,000 a month committing Amazon refunds. And most everyone at that point in time, we all looked at these posts and we responded with, you, sir, are full of shit. Well, it turns out that they were not full of shit. They were making $10,000 a month doing Amazon refunds. And here's how it worked. You'd sign up for a Prime free trial. You'd use your name, your credit card, your address. You'd order something like a MacBook Pro. Amazon would ship it out to you. It would arrive 2 days later. They'd leave it on your doorstep. You'd get on the phone. You get on a chat session. You'd say, hey, I didn't get it. Amazon would ship you another one. It would arrive 2 days later. They'd leave it on your doorstep. You get back on the chat session with Amazon or the phone with Amazon. You say, yeah, I didn't get that one either. And they would give you a refund. So you get 2 MacBook Pros and your money back. That was extremely profitable. And it wasn't just MacBooks. It was 70-inch TVs. It was living room sofas. It was anything that Amazon sold at that point in time. Yeah, that sofa, I didn't get it. And they'd ship you another one, then give you money back. That's the way this shit worked. And it worked like that for well over a year. Ate Amazon alive. Amazon finally started to institute some security. It started at the customer service level. And so what would happen is that you would get on the phone with Amazon, and depending on where the customer service agent was located, you could immediately get a refund. And in this, on Evolution, you'd see these posts talking about that. Somebody would say that, hey, you know, if you pick up and call a call center wanting that refund, and it's an Indian call center, hang up immediately, because those son of a bitches don't give the money back. And you'd call back and get an English, somebody in America, and they would give you your money back. That was the first line of defense for Amazon, and it did not work very well for Amazon. So then Amazon decided that, okay, we'll ramp things up. We will require a police report for any refund that looks suspicious. So they announced that, and the idea being, well, what criminal, what fraudster would ever walk into a police station and file a police report, actually lie to law enforcement? I wonder. Well, what happens is, on Evolution again, they say to themselves, they were like, you know, I wonder if Amazon is actually verifying those police reports. Well, it turns out they weren't. He photoshops one, sends it in. They were not verifying it. He gets the refund. Overnight, a little cottage industry pops up. Photoshop police reports, $25 a pop. And they eat Amazon alive for another 6 months until Amazon starts verifying police reports. Now, the end of that story, the way that actually works out, is Amazon, they're the first ones that institutes taking snapshots of those packages that are delivered and left on your porch. You remember that? Yeah, every single day. You know, Amazon drops something off, UPS drops something off, FedEx drops something off. They take snapshots to prove that it was delivered to that address. The reason that they do that is because of refunding fraud. That's it. That's the only friggin' reason they do that. That's how ubiquitous, how successful this crime is. So how is this crime actually committed? Back then, you would say, hey, it never arrived. They had no proof that it did, so they would ship you another one. Now, once they get used to that excuse, to that scam, these other types of techniques on how to commit refunding fraud start to pop up. So it starts with did not arrive, DNA. Then it starts out with, yeah, I got the box. Yeah, the MacBook box is here. It's right here. I'm looking at it. Yes, I opened the box. Yes, I opened the box. No, the laptop's not in the box. Yeah, the box is empty. Yeah, the box was sealed. Yeah, the package looks good. The box was sealed. There's nothing in the box. So you'd call and tell them that. Amazon would ship you another one. And that was the game that was played. Or you'd buy 4 or 5 items, like you'd buy, a yo-yo or a Furby or whatever the hell, and then you'd order a MacBook Pro, and you'd make sure it was shipped in the same shipment in the same box. And then when you got it in, you'd call up Amazon. Yeah, my Furby's here. Yeah, the Furby's. Yeah, the yo-yo's here. You know what's not here? What's not here is my friggin' laptop. And you tell them that, and they'd ship you another one anyway. So now you've got the did not arrive. You've got was not in the box. They get used to that stuff after a while. Now both these excuses, depending on which merchant that you're trying to defraud, both of those excuses still have varying degrees of success. But fraudsters, like I used to be, we continue to try and test and innovate on things to be more successful and therefore more profitable over time. Started on Tor forums. What happens is Evolution Marketplace, the owners over there, they decide that they're going to pull what's called an exit scam. They shut down the marketplace and they steal all the criminals' cryptocurrency, about $23 million at that point in time. No one knew who did it. About a year and a half later, they find one of the owners of Evolution on a beach in Cyprus, minus his head and hands. Anyway, yeah, that turns out that some of the money that was stolen from the Ukrainian mob, and they took exception to that. One of the next forums that pops up was called Tor forums. And on Tor forums, so this crime becomes so successful that on the forums themselves, you had entire sub-forums that was dedicated to committing refunding fraud. And so what would happen is you would have a criminal, new guy would come in, really wouldn't understand how to commit this fraud whatsoever, was very uncomfortable contacting Amazon. So instead of him having to do that, what would happen is you'd have these refunders that would pop up and they would say, hey, go ahead and place the order. Once you've placed the order, let me know. And for 15% of the order total, I will get you your money back. So you had this whole refunding marketplace pop in. And these refunders would list stores that were available. Like, hey, I can refund from Amazon. I can refund from Apple. I can refund from Microsoft Store, Sam's Club, or Costco, or Wayfair. And you'd have all these store lists, and they would tell you the amounts that they were able to refund, the percent of the order total that they would charge to get the refund back for you. If you could get multiple items, if you could get what was called a double dip, like those 2 laptops and your money back, or if it was just a single occurrence, you'd have all this information that was there. So that crime redefined cybercrime. What used to happen, a brand new criminal coming in, he would typically buy stolen credit card details. And then he would try to hit Apple, Sony, some bullshit like that for high dollar electronics. And he would fail miserably because that bullshit requires a degree of skill. As such, a lot of those failures would get themselves a real job or maybe go down and flip hamburgers someplace. so that it kept numbers in check. These days, and back then, what we saw with refunding is this shift, so that instead of new criminals coming in and buying stolen credit card details, new criminals now come in and engage in refunding fraud. They immediately start profiting, and then they use that profit to bankroll their education into other forms of crime. The result is that most aspiring cyber criminals stick around in the environment. And that is just one of the reasons that we see the explosion of cyber criminals across the planet. When I ran Shadow Crew, we got shut down in 2004, 4,000 members. Fast forward to 2017, Alpha Bay, largest criminal network on the planet at that point in time, shuts down by law enforcement, 240,000 members. 2019, dark web marketplace called Black Market gets shut down, 1.15 million members. Those numbers continue to increase and explode. As a matter of fact, here's a nice little statistic for you. If cybercrime were a country, it would have the third largest economy on the planet. That's how successful cybercrime is. And for a lot of these criminals, it begins with refunding fraud. Now, let's backtrack what I was saying about Tor forums. We've got the did not arrive excuse. We've got the was not in the box excuse. On Tor forums, we started to see people talking about manipulating the return shipping label. So when you get an item in, you'll notify the company that you want to return the item. A lot of these companies will send you a prepaid, or you can download a prepaid label that you affix to a box and you send it back. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a free return, everything else. What we started to see on Tor forums were people talking about manipulating the shipping label in such a way that it would make it appear that the package was sent back, but it never was. The company would actually think they received the package back. That is what's called FTID, fake or false tracking identification. What you basically do is you take that shipping label from USPS, from DHL, from UPS, from Canada Post, from FedEx, wherever. You take that return label, you strip a lot of the data off of it except for the address where that box is being shipped to. Okay, so, and there's a few ways you can do FTID. You can put that return label on a box full of plastic frogs. There was a guy that got indicted for that just a few months ago. So instead of shipping a laptop back, he's shipping these little toy frogs back that simply weigh the same. He puts so many freaking them in a box that they weigh the same as a laptop. Returns typically don't go back to the store from which you purchased the item. They go to a return processing center like Loop Returns. And this processing center, they receive hundreds, thousands of these boxes, these returns a day. They scan in the label. As soon as they scan in the label, the store from which you bought the item from is notified that they have received the return. As soon as they're notified that they've received the return, you get the money credited back to your account. Sometimes you get the money credited back to your account as soon as FedEx or UPS or USPS actually scans the label into the shipping system itself. That's called an instant return. So there are many different techniques to commit FTID fraud, fake tracking identification fraud. You can make it you can manipulate the shipping label to where instead of it being returned to the return center, it's returned to some address that's simply in the zip code of that return center itself. And it's still scanned as being received by the company as a return. The idea being that you get to keep the item. The company thinks they get the product back. They don't. You get the item, you get the money at the same time. It's a very profitable type of crime. As a matter of fact, on Telegram, on Null, on the dark web, you have FTID services that will actually strip that information out for you so that it's done for you. You don't have to worry about it. You've got FTID shipping services that will actually take your return label, strip the data from it, affix it to a box or what have you, and then ship it out for you. This is the way these crimes are committed. So did not arrive, not in box, FTID. Those are the techniques that are used. This is a crime, and this crime, as I said, it's redefined cybercrime. About 16 months ago, I'm very fortunate that I get to talk with law enforcement frequently. And I'm the guy who's very good at determining the trends of cybercrime, of basically saying, hey, you guys might want to look at this bullshit because it's going to eat your asses alive. So we were having a talk. I was having a talk with this agency, and I simply said at that point in time, hey, you guys may want to go over to Telegram and look at all the refunding fraud that's going on over there. So they did. That culminates. We're now in February of 2024. From fall of 2023 through this spring, there are going to be over 300 arrests of Telegram refunders, both the people providing the refunding services and some of the upper tier customers that have been committing that type of fraud. And fortunately, and I'm thankful that I was able to assist in some small way in getting these people taken off the street, because they victimize a lot of different companies. There's no merchant or retailer that I can actually think of that's not been hit with refunding fraud. Now, understand the damage that this thing can do to a merchant. You take camera stores, for example. A camera store operates on typically a 2% profit margin, a 2% profit margin. Of that 2%, a lot of these camera stores, they're not given, it's not cash. That's their profit margin, because these camera companies like Nikon, Canon, Leica, things like that, they give product. So you get product in place of cash. So that 2% is also 2% product as well. So if you get a bunch of refund fraudsters that hit your store and you're operating on a 2% margin, the chances of you going out of business, of being hurt pretty bad, is pretty goddamn high at that point. It gets even worse because, hey, I don't run a camera store. How does that affect me? Well, it affects you because you've got these refund fraudsters that take advantage of very good customer service. If you've got a company that has very good customer service, that typically means that I can defraud them fairly easily. As such, you get these refund fraudsters take advantage of that. That forces customer service to be not so friendly, not so friction-free, and that causes damage to you as a buyer, as a customer coming into that environment. More than that, all those stolen goods, those losses get passed on to the consumer. So this is a crime that hurts everyone across the board. It victimizes everyone. So I'm fortunate that I was able to assist law enforcement in doing this. Now, we've talked about Telegram before. It's not difficult to identify a Telegram fraudster because they suffer from FIS, fucking idiot syndrome. They talk way too much. They share way too much. They take selfies. They dox each other. They take snapshots of their orders with the order number there, so they're easy enough to track there. They take snapshots of stolen credit cards that they're using with a full credit card. They're fucking idiots. All right, so it's not difficult to track these people. It's not difficult to arrest them. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Let's talk about Refund. Now, I am the guy who used to be top of the heap on the cybercrime side. Not bragging about that. That's just the truth of the matter. I'm very fortunate these days that I'm widely respected and have a place of authority on the good guy side of things. When we're talking about cybersecurity, cybercrime, identity theft, I know what I'm talking about. Back in November, and I talked to many different types of companies. I'm more than happy to talk to people that have a product or a service that they're working on building. If they want my insight, hey, you may have to chase me down for a minute, but I'm more than happy to sit down with you and have a conversation. So these college kids reached out to me. Their names were Satya Weir, Tobias Warledge, and Sandoval. Sandoval, what is your name, Sandoval? Let me pull you up. I forget your name, but that's all right. I've got the post pulled up here. So it was Satya Weir, Caleb Sandoval, Tobias Warledge. They reached out to me and they were talking about refunding fraud. And they said, hey, we've got a product that identifies refund fraud and can stop it before it happens. So I read that, and my initial response, in my thought of thoughts, I was like, yeah, you're full of shit. Nobody's going to stop refunding fraud. But here's the thing. Even when I was a criminal, I always kept an open mind. Even though I may in the back of my head say, they're full of shit, you can't just dismiss someone. So I was like, yeah, let's have a meeting. So we got on a meeting. And it turns out that they do have a product that does identify a specific type of refund fraud. Now, to backtrack just a second, what we have found out with many of these arrests of refund fraudsters, and this is something that I have had, I mean, I knew it was going on and I had hypothesized that it was going on, but to actually see it in practice and it actually working out that way blows my fucking mind. It turns out that a lot of refund fraudsters are not poor people. They're not. It turns out that a lot of refund fraudsters are actually come from very good, wealthy families. They don't need the money whatsoever. They just engage in this bullshit because, hey, it's fun. Saw it, you weird. Caleb Tobias. When I got on a Zoom session with them and we're talking and they're talking about the product and I'm like, it sounds good. Sounds like it would work. I don't get to see the product, but I'm like, it sounds good. And it's evident that they know what they're talking about. And it's Satya, the CEO of Refund, college kid, that's talking to me at first this entire time. And I'm like, yeah, okay, it sounds good. And he's like, well, let me introduce you to my two co-founders, Caleb and Tobias. So Caleb and Tobias get on there and they, we're all got the little, happy-go-lucky bullshit going on. Nice to meet you. We've known you, we've read about you for a long time. We really respect what you've done. You are our hero. And I'm like, I appreciate it. And I'm talking and I say, it's evident that you guys know what you're talking about. You know the environment. Product looks good. You should be good to go. And I believe it was Caleb. Caleb says, well, there's a reason that we know the environment. And I'm like, well, what is that? And he's like, well, we are refund fraudsters. And I'm like, oh, now here's the thing. I am very good about keeping that poker face. If you tell me some bullshit, I am very good about keeping it hidden and going, well, good deal. So that's basically what I did. I was like, oh, really? Well, that's cool. And my next response was, are you still refund fraudsters? And they were like, oh, no, we don't do that anymore. I'm like, okay. That was a Zoom call. And they tell me they're refund fraudsters. And the next words out of their mouths are, do you think that we should tell prospective clients that we were committing fraud? And my answer was, if you tell them, no one's going to hire you. I get a lot of calls and do a lot of meetings with people who have products and those products never get off the ground. I did not expect that they would ever go live with their service. I was wrong. Refend.ai went live just a few weeks ago. I'd always figured I'll take care of it if it happens. All right. They go live and it takes me a little while to respond to that. And I did finally respond. This is actually the second show that I've recorded about Refund because I wanted to do things properly. I recorded one a week and a half ago, and I was not happy with the recording. I wanted to get news out about Refund, so I actually posted on LinkedIn what was going on. I'm going to read that post because I think it's important. I'm going to discuss the post as I read it, okay? Because this is what's really important with hiring former criminals or companies that are ran by former criminals to provide security. So the post reads, quote, wolf in the hen house. Many years ago, Carice Hendricks said that to me as the Card Not Present group debated bringing me in on what would be my first paid speaking gig. So when I make that decision to turn my life around, I had posted on LinkedIn my profile, my criminal history. I didn't hide that from anyone. Carice Hendrick was the traveling editor of the Card Not Present group. She was looking for speakers. She sees my profile. She recognizes the Shadow Crew name, and she immediately thinks, well, is this guy full of shit? Who would brag or post about committing crime? I wasn't bragging. I was just simply telling the truth. She was looking for speakers for her conference at that point in time, the CNP conference. She had always wanted a criminal to talk on stage, to talk to her audience. She reaches out to me. When she reaches out to me, she tells me this, and over the space of about 6 months, we have these series of phone calls. She asks for references. She does this, and she will not commit to bringing me in to speak. What finally happens is after about 6 months, I give her this FBI agent, a guy named Keith Malarski, had taken me under his wing. He was giving me references, giving me advice, telling me, hey, dude, you can do this. You can be legal. It's going to be okay. You got a great story. You got a lot of knowledge. You can do this. So I had given Carice Keith Malarski's information. She reached out to him. I have no idea what he told her. Evidently, he told her, yeah, this guy knows what the fuck he's talking about. She calls me back, and we've been having this runaround for about 6 months. And in that call, she's like, Brett, I really want to bring you in to talk to the audience. The problem is that I'm scared that you have the potential to be this wolf in the hen house, that you'll talk to my audience, all those merchants, and you'll use the information that you get from them to defraud them. And got to be honest with you, that bullshit kind of pissed me off. And I responded just off the cuff, Carice, I don't need to talk to your audience to figure out how to defraud them. I'm more than capable of doing that on my own. And she got quiet. And she says, you're right. That resulted in her booking me to speak as a keynote at the conference. And from there, it didn't stop. I'm now, I speak across the planet. I'm on podcasts. I'm on documentaries, everything else. And I'm very fortunate that I was given that chance by Carice Hendrick, and I'm very grateful to her for that. So that's where this term wolf in the hen house comes. And I'll continue here. Back then, I told her I didn't need information from those merchants if I wanted to defraud them. I was more than capable of doing that on my own. I got the speaking gig. Today, online criminals are no longer my tribe. And this is what I posted on LinkedIn. I said, today, online criminals and fraudsters are no longer my tribe. My tribe are those businesses and consumers I work hard to protect, and I take that job seriously. So this concept of a tribe, when I was an active criminal, when I was actually committing fraud, those people were my tribe. They were my people. Whatever it took for me to make sure that they were safe, secure, and profitable is exactly what I did, and I took my job goddamn seriously. They are no longer my tribe. My tribe today are consumers and organizations, and trying to protect them from the type of person that I used to be. And by God, I take that job goddamn seriously. And I'm good at that job. That's important to remember because that's what we're talking about with this Refend.ai group. I get it. I've matured over the years. I understand the concern. What happens if you hire a former criminal and let them see your security policies and practices, and then that person uses that information to victimize you? What happens if you let a wolf into the hen house? There's a reason that even as I work with the largest companies and best minds on the planet, I am not allowed to see proprietary information. It's the right choice, even though I am now firmly on the legal side of things. So that's the thing, right? I was chief criminal officer for Arcos Labs. They made me take a background check. Needless to say, I failed the background check. And that was the CEO over there. Good guy, Australian guy, cool cat. Kevin Goschalk is the guy's name. He tells me, he's like, we were having a drink one night in Orlando, and he's like, Brett, you failed your background check. And I'm like, well, Kevin, I figured I would. Isn't that what helped me get the job? And he was like, well, yeah, but the insurance company made us give you a background check. I'm like, that's fine, man. The insurance company also made them not divulge any proprietary information to me. So their Slack channel, for example, they had a company Slack channel. I was not allowed on that. They created a brand new Slack channel for old Brady to use. I was not allowed to look at any of their products, any of their services, anything else like that because of fear of this wolf in the hen house. Even though today I work with law enforcement, I speak across the planet, I don't think there's anybody in the world right now that would say, Brett Johnson is going to go back to commit crime. I think I'm firmly on that good guy's side now, but there are consequences for people's actions. I cannot blame a company for not letting me touch their network. That would be stupid because of the history that I have. I have bought and paid for that history, and by God, it comes with consequences. You cannot let a former fraudster, somebody who used to victimize you, you can't let them look at your secret recipe because by God, they may share that with other people. I understand. I get it. Recently, and here we go. Recently, I've been hit with my own ethical quandary of a wolf and a hen house. I was approached by the founders of a new security company whose service identifies a form of fraud most merchants are battling. Does the service work? Yes, I absolutely believe it does. Will the service get better over time? Yes, I absolutely believe that it will. The problem, though, is that at least 2 of the 3 founders of the company were, and perhaps still are, actively engaged in the type of fraud that their service protects merchants against. Pause and think about that. You've got somebody that's coming to you, Loop Returns, Amazon, Dick's Sporting Goods, what have you. You've got somebody that's coming to you and they say, hey, I know you've been hit with this type of fraud. Yeah, I know you have. Now, the unspoken part is, I know you've been hit by this type of fraud because, well, I've been the one that's been hitting you with this type of fraud. But they say, I know you've been hit with this type of fraud. And I've got a service that guarantees that you'll no longer be hit with it. The only thing you have to do is pay me. Now, that sounds a bit like extortion to me. Maybe it doesn't to anybody else, but to me it does. All right? That's the pitch of Refend.ai. The unspoken pitch is, we used to be fraudsters. How do I know? They told me. Refund, fraud, FTID, big money for criminals everywhere. Refend.ai provides a service which recognizes FTID. They are currently in talks with Shopify, Loop, and several others about providing that service to help identify FTID fraud. Refend touts their ability and knowledge of how to mitigate this fraud by saying, and if you go over to the website Refend.ai, you scroll on down, and they've got their frequently asked questions, and the first question out of the gate is, what sets Refend apart from other solutions? And the response is, our unique advantage stems from our insider approach to combat refund fraud. We are the sole company in this space that proactively engages with dark web refunding groups, leveraging this secret information with AI. We can then prevent refund fraud like never before. Now that is a friendly euphemism for saying that we have been doing this shit, committing fraud for a while now. We know the business, and therefore we can protect you from that. We can extort you, is the way that I read that. How do I know they are committing fraud? They told me. Do I have proof of them committing fraudulent activities? I do. That proof will be out on a Criminal Thoughts podcast episode next week. This episode we're doing right now. The issue is one of potentially letting a wolf into a hen house. The Refund product works at identifying a type of FTID refund fraud which merchants are battling. The founders have a history of committing fraud. In fact, it would not surprise me if at least one of the founders wasn't soon indicted in the mass arrest of refunders that's been happening the last several months. So the question is whether customers of Refund are okay letting a wolf into the hen house. Maybe, just maybe, the answer is yes. But I take my job seriously. And I protect my tribe. And I thought full disclosure was needed in order to make an objective decision. I am not convinced that intel gathered from that hen house won't be used by a couple of the founders to continue to commit fraud, or that intel won't be used or shared to other wolves that are looking to get into that same hen house. So that's why I posted this on LinkedIn. That's why we're having this conversation today, talking about Refund. Now, I took a trip to Austin, Texas. And I was working with a company called Sion. They are an anti-fraud company, security company. They do a really good job. They are not populated by fraudsters. They do an outstanding job. While I was there, I was having this ethical quandary. What do I need to do? Well, I knew what I needed to do. Believe it or not, well, shit, I was going to say I don't like conflict, but I do like conflict. I love that shit. I love calling a motherfucker out when they do a wrong thing. I was going to try to be nice there for a second, say, I don't like conflict. I like to avoid conflict. I don't like to say anything that's off color or dramatic or conflicting, but I love that shit. On the way back, what the problem was is that I had not recorded the Zoom session with these three founders that had admitted to committing fraud. So I'm like, well, shit, I really, I can post this stuff on LinkedIn. I can do a show about it. But unless I actually have them talking about it, does it really fucking matter at the end of the day? So got on LinkedIn, sent Satya, the CEO of Refund, a message. I'm like, hey, man, we really need to have a call. I want to talk about, I told him, I want to talk about Refund on LinkedIn. I want to talk about it on my show. To do that, I've got some questions I'd like to ask, and just to ease my mind. I did not tell some bitch that I was going to roast him alive. So I let him think that, yeah, I like your company. I'm going to talk about it. Told him to call me. So I get through my conference in Austin. I'm driving back, and he calls me on the road from Austin. So the question becomes, because Satya decides he's a little angry at me after I record the call, the question becomes is, what does it take in the United States that allows you to record a call? What can you record someone's call? Across the 50 states, you have a one-party state and you have a two-party state. If you live in a one-party state, so you got two people on a phone call, you've got two parties. If just one of those parties is aware that a recording is happening and gives consent, then it's legal for you to record that call. If you live in a two-party state, that means that both people that are on the phone call or everyone else that's on the call has to give permission for you to record that call. If you record it without someone's permission, you have broken the law. Now, it goes even deeper than that because we're talking about multiple states all of a sudden. That means federal law comes in. So what does federal law say? Federal law is a one-party state or one-party nation, which says that, hey, only one person needs to give consent to record a call. So bear that in mind if you ever need to record somebody on the phone. Now, yes, you can record whoever you want to, but if you're looking to use that in court, if you're looking to publish that someplace, you need to know whether you're one party, two party, federal, what's going to go on. That's the information that you need to know in order to record and use a recording on a call. I recorded Satya Weir talking about refunding fraud, and we're going to play part of that right now.
I wanted some sort of confirmation that the two other co-founders are no longer in the refund game, because I don't want to talk about Refund on LinkedIn and then still doing bullshit on the side.
Yeah, they're not.
Okay.
They're not.
How long have they been out of this?
Well, one of them was never in it.
Okay.
And then the other one, maybe like 5 months.
Okay. 5 months from when? Because there's a shitload of indictments coming down from this fall through this spring.
He never did much. He's definitely under like 5,000.
Okay. So I don't have to worry about any of that crap from either one of those, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the only thing I was concerned about on that.
That is the CEO of Refund. What happened was I sent him a message. I was like, call me. At that point in time, what you have to understand, this is kind of interesting when you're talking about manipulating and dealing with people. If you need someone to say something, if you're trying to social engineer someone, it's best to come from a place of authority when you can. And it dates back to that Stanford experiment. You put people in positions of authority, people who are not in positions of authority, people who are underlings or submissive, they tend to respond and do what you want them to do at that point in time without question. Satya is in that position of being a submissive because he wants something from me. I have told him that I'm going to be talking about everything on LinkedIn, but I need to settle my mind to make sure that everything's all right, because I don't want to say some stuff and it come out that 2 of your founders are still engaged in bullshit. That gives him that carrot that he's wanting. And I lead him right through exactly what I want him or need him to say in order to prove things. So what does this call actually show? It shows that the CEO of Refend.ai knows that the other 2, he only says 1, but he knows that the other 2 were engaged in fraud. Now, was he engaged in fraud? I don't know. He never admitted that to me, but he absolutely knows that his co-founders are. Now, they told me on the Zoom session that both of them were. My thought right here is he's already hedging. He's uncomfortable admitting this. He's already starting to hedge. He's like, yeah, it wasn't both. It was just one. It was just one. And he wasn't really that successful. He only did it for 5 months, and it was under $5,000. Now, I've got to call bullshit on that, okay? Because $5,000 is a refund. That's not very much. You're actually doing a hell of a lot more than that. It's very easy to do. And for them to have the type of knowledge that they've got is a hell of a lot more than $5,000 of refund fraud. They've been doing this a while. Just pay attention again to their nice little tidbit where it's talking about unique advantage from our insider approach. We're the sole company in the space that proactively engages with dark web refunding groups. This is not a crew that's only done this thing a couple of times. This is a crew that's been very prolific about that. Make no mistake about that. They know what the hell they're talking about. They know how this fraud is committed. They know the Telegram groups. Why? Because they've been actively committing fraud in those groups with those people. So, looking at the Refend.ai product, what does that actually mean? Does the product work? Yes, but does that also mean that these guys are going to go back in these environments and basically warn the other members, hey, stay away from, if we sign on with Loop Returns, stay away from them because we've got this product there. So Loop Returns, what do they see? They see all these Telegram fraudsters that are not committing fraud on any company that uses Loop. Is it because the Refund product works, or is it because the Refund fraudsters have warned their peers in the criminal groups not to commit fraud against Loop? Is it a mixture of both? These are the problems that we're talking about. Once Loop decides they no longer need Refund, does that mean the Refund fraudsters go back to their criminal peers and say, hey, Loop's wide open again? And this is what you need to know in order to victimize them, so that Loop sees fraud skyrocket in their own environment. This is the problem with letting a wolf into the henhouse. So I posted this shit on LinkedIn, warning people because, hey, you need to know this, okay? Satya Weir reached out to me. He sent me a message. And he's, again, the CEO of Refund. And he says, I'm going to read it. I sent Brian a copy of it if he'll pull that up as well. There we go. So Satya sent me this message. She's like, hey, Brett, saw your LinkedIn post about Refund, and it definitely took me by surprise. I am sorry that you have a negative opinion of us, and I promise that we are doing our best to solve the massive issue of refund fraud. So that's the way it starts out. But he then comes in and he says, by the way, I want to remind you that we are based in California, a 2-party consent state. Did you illegally record our meeting and phone call without our consent? Notice what he says there. Our meeting and phone call. Our meeting because 2 of you motherfuckers admitted to fraud during the meeting. No, Bretty did not record that. If I would have just known that you son of a bitches were going to admit to being criminals during that call, bet your little ass I would have recorded it, but I didn't. That's that foresight 2020 or hindsight 2020, whatever it is, but I didn't record it. Did I record the phone call? Well, yes, I did. Now, here's the thing, Satya. I am better at this than you are. I will always be better at this than you are. You will never be as good at this as I am. That's a fact. All right. Now, the way this is going to work you're going to see this episode. It's going to hurt your feelings. It's going to hurt your business. Because, by God, it had better, because I can't imagine who the fuck would want to hire you after you've admitted that you knew that they were committing fraud, and by God, you're okay with that. Maybe you are too. I don't know. You didn't admit it, though, so I can't say that.
You may feel a slight sting.
So it's going to hurt your feelings. It's going to fuck with your pride, no doubt about it. You may get it in your head that you want to do something about it, because California is a two-party state. You may get it in your head, Brad committed a crime. I've done that before. We know that. By all means, if you will be to roll the die and try to sue me, talk to some prosecutor, try to prosecute me, whatever, please think about that for a second. How does that work out for you? Well, it doesn't work out very good for you, because then we get it in a court system, and then things go much more publicly than they do on LinkedIn. Could harm your little college career, that entitlement that you've got going on over there. It's a nice school you go to. It'd be a shame if news of this got out to the point that, people are looking at you and Caleb and Tobias and be like, shit, man, does anybody want to hire these guys? Probably not. Of course, I think it's going to go that way anyway. Personally, what I would advise you to do is lay down and take it, because that's the logical thing to do. Now, you're welcome to try to do something. My thought is that, hey, yeah, you're in California, got a lot of entitlement going on. You think you can run over people. You think you can set up a company ran by fraudsters and it'd be successful. You take exception to people who call you out on that. You can try it. You can, but I don't think it's going to work out for you. I think that at the end of the day, and I may lose, the big loss will be you, Caleb, and Tobias. I think that federal law will probably supersede, it'll come in as one-party state, everything will be fine. Regardless, the fucking phone call is public now. The damage is done. The best thing you can do, lay down, take it, hope it goes away, hope it doesn't destroy anything else other than Refend.ai. My other thought is that I absolutely believe that at least one of your crew is going to be indicted. That one that's indicted, he's going to tell on everybody else. So if you've done anything, you're going to get indicted. That's my thought. My name is Brett Johnson. I am not to be fucked with. It's that tribe thing. I don't like people who are part of a tribe and then decide that they're going to go against the tribe that they're part of and fuck those people over. That's exactly what you guys are doing to Refund. You know as well as I do, you've been fraudsters. Now you're trying to say, well, we're going to fuck over those people, but you're fucking over every single tribe. You're screwing over your criminal peers. You're screwing over the guys on the good guy side, because you know as well as I do that you're probably still committing fraud. If you're not, what does it take for you to go back and commit fraud? Because you don't have any VC funding. Are you going to bankroll your product by committing fraud so that you don't have to have VC funding? We've already talked about how you want to sell Refund ultimately to some other company. I frown on that, man. I frown on that. I would advise, my advice is any company that's out there that's looking at Refund to take a pause, consider if you want these types of individuals in your environment. Even if the product does work, do you want them in your environment? Are they going to share that with their criminal peers? My thought is yes. We're going to close things out because at this point, I'm just going on a tirade and repeating my ass over and over again. Don't hire Refund. Can't say it any clearer than that. This is the Criminal Thoughts Podcast. When I close this show, we talk about, I say the same thing. I say, stay safe out there. This applies to today's show. If you are a merchant, a retailer, a return center, what have you, stay safe out there. Make decisions that keeps your platform, your environment, your customers safe. That does not mean letting a wolf into the henhouse. Stay secure. Again, are you secure if you are letting a former or a current fraudster in your environment and to provide security for you. Stay vigilant. Too many times we look at a profile, we look at an advertisement, we look at a product or a service, and we take it at its face value without ever looking at who has created that, who the team is, who the company is, who's populating that, what the history of these people are. Stay safe, stay secure, stay vigilant. More importantly, none of this shit would matter if at the end of the day, we would just do the right damn thing. That's why I close every single show I do with that. Just do the right damn thing. My name is Brett Johnson. This is the Criminal Thoughts Podcast. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in. If you don't mind, reach over there and hit that little subscribe button. Not only that, but visit my other show, The Brett Johnson Show. I think you'll like it. Hit the subscribe button over there. I need all the views I can get. Better yet, shoot me an email. If you've got problems, concerns, if you want to be a guest on the show or want me to talk about a topic, email me at Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at thebrettjohnsonshow.com. I read every single email. I often respond to every single email. Unless you're an asshole, then I won't respond. My name is Brett Johnson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.